Has it come? Check. Refresh.
Fast-paced world. I can't see it.
Just refresh and check because someone's joined.
Oh, I see it.
Okay. Right? I'm audible? Visible as well? Right. We'll wait just a few minutes, let a few more people join, and then we shall start the session. Okay. Few more minutes, guys. Thank you for being patient. Oh, I thank you, Jayasuriya, for noticing that I've got a haircut. Yes. Just a few more minutes, guys. Okay, so I think it's 5 o'clock now. More people should continue to join, but hi, happy evening. Thank you for joining. I firstly, before I even begin the entire talk, I just want to thank everyone who made this possible. Global insurance brokers, more particularly Miss Pratima. She was very helpful, super informational, and she's really put in a lot of effort to make this talk happen. And I am super grateful for being given this opportunity to speak to all of you. So I want to start off by saying that when global insurance brokers came to me and asked me to talk about something to all of you, I really didn't know what I was going to talk about. What can I, as a 19-year-old, speak to all of you that you don't already know? What can I tell you guys that you aren't already aware of about your mental health well-being? And so I really thought to myself, and I came to the conclusion that for the past few decades, in fact, my whole and an entire upbringing, there's been one thing that has really taken an adverse effect on several aspects of my life, both physiological, psychological, and mentally. And it's something that I believe all of us can relate to because it is an intrinsic part in all of our lives. And that, of course, is social media. It is something that has existed for the past few decades and it has grown into multitudes, into several platforms. As you can see, what exactly is social media? You may already know Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat, any form of medium and communication where you can speak to each other, speak to people you know from all over the globe, and you can find things that you find interesting. Of course, we're all aware of what social media is, but how exactly does it affect us? And how do I know it affects us? Well, firstly, let me give you one quick fact that will be quite surprising to you. On an average, the daily person, on a daily basis, we use social media for 2.5 hours. That's longer than the amount of time we spend eating food. So anything that we spend this amount of time doing every day lets you know that there's definitely some sort of role that it plays in terms of our mental health. Another aspect is that 43% of people say that they have gained some sort of happiness from social media. And by that, it is quite clear that it does play some sort of role. But why exactly did I choose this topic? Why social media? Before I get to that, I just want to tell you a quick story about the past year of my life. So basically, last year, after I graduated high school, I decided to take a gap year. Something that is not a lot of people aren't familiar with it, A gap year is essentially taking a year off after high school and between college to focus on whatever it is you need to do. I decided to take a gap year because I wanted to get into a better college. I wanted to study twice as hard and see where my potential takes me. And it was a very difficult decision to make because I had some acceptances, but I chose not to. I chose not to go to college. And so this was increasingly difficult for me because all my friends who I graduated with, people I'm extremely close to, had decided to go to college all over the world. And they were going to meet beautiful new people, experience beautiful new memories, and share it through social media. And of course, I knew that this would take an adverse toll on me, seeing all these experiences happen, knowing I could have had them, and choosing not to have had them. And of course, I decided that I will stay away from social media. So basically, I decided to delete Snapchat, WhatsApp, Facebook, Instagram, everything. And actually, sorry, my apologies. I did keep WhatsApp for texting, but besides that, nothing else. And it did help. I was able to keep in touch with the people who are genuinely close to me, and I was aware of everything happening in their life. But when I told the story to someone else that I'd taken this gap year and this gap from social media for 9 months, they had a very interesting response. They said, "Wow, a social media detox for 9 months? I usually take one for about 1 or 2 months." And that particular phrase, social media detox, that really stuck by me. The fact that we associate social media with the need to have a detox for it lets us know that there is something that could possibly be toxic about this, something that could have a role, an effect on us that is not helping us, whether it be our self-esteem, our concentration, our ability to focus, or our ability to even be happy. And that is the main reason why I decided to research and find out and talk extensively to people who are experts in this field about what kind of effect social media has on us. And as you'll see through this talk, I'll basically focus on the effect social media has on it. And I want to first tell you guys that social media, I think, is a great platform for marketing, for business wise, and to connect with people all over the globe. It has done so much for us. It has done wonders. But we must also be aware and acknowledge all the negative side effects of social media as well, in order to ensure that it doesn't happen to us. One thing I want to inform you guys, and this is, I just want you guys to dwell over this point for just a second. Think about the fact that we constantly are aware of what we are consuming physically, in terms of our diet, in terms of our food, but we never bother about what we are consuming mentally in terms of social media. And that is something we should definitely be aware of. So, the first step now to our path to understanding how social media affects us is acknowledging the fact that social media is entertainment. Now, I am not referring to those who use it as a market to market themselves as a brand or an influencer, but I am talking about this in terms of the 98% of us, the majority of us, use it as for simple use. We use it for entertainment's sake. It is not essential in our lives. People can survive without social media. And if you meet someone without social media, don't treat them like a caveman. They can get by. And so once we realize that is not an essential part of us, that it is basically saying if you were to reject social media, it is no different than saying I'd rather watch movies on Amazon Prime than watch movies on Netflix. It's the same thing as saying I'd rather not use social media than use it. And that's our first step towards that. Because social media, what it essentially is that they offer you shiny treats in exchange for minutes of your attention and bytes of your personal data. And there's no big deal in declining how to use it. Now, how exactly do we know social media is entertainment? And why exactly are we so hooked onto it? How exactly is it that every human being in India, almost every person in India, uses it for at least 2.5 hours a day? And that is due to the reason, the fact that social media is designed to be addictive. And there is a term I will come towards, called the attention economy. But essentially in its design, social media has been designed in a way in which it's addictive. Due to the effect that it has on the brain, social media is addictive both physically and psychologically. This is backed up by facts. By a study by Harvard University says that self-disclosure on social networking sites lights up the same part of our brain that also ignites when taking addictive substances. So we're aware that essentially when we get those likes, when we get those comments, those positive comments, that kind of that high, that addictive, that feeling that we get is similar to the feeling we get when taking addictive substances. Now I realize that it might be a little hard to digest, but all of this is to be aware of how to help this, of how to overcome if there is an addiction or how to control it. But how exactly does social media achieve this? You may be thinking, how do they make it so addictive? Well, majority of the social media companies, including Twitter and Facebook, they hire individuals called attention engineers who borrow principles from Las Vegas casinos, which include gambling and such, among many other places, to try and make these products as addictive as possible. They want you to use it in an addictive fashion, as this maximizes the profit that can be extracted from your attention and data. This essentially what I'm trying to tell you is attention economy. We live in the internet age, and attention economy is where people on the internet make money. You see, it's a relatively new term, but it refers to the supply and demand of a person's attention, which is the commodity traded on the internet. See, unfortunately, human attention is a limited resource. So social networks are working hard to make each experience as seamless and as engaging as possible, feeding off our attention little by little through those dopamine boosts. So now we understand that the longer they can keep us hooked onto their social media network, and this applies even for people who create content on YouTube, the longer the videos are, the longer we pay attention to it, the more advertisements they can fill and the more money they can generate. And so essentially for them, it is not about there is the basic fund, the most important commodity for them is our attention. But what have they done? What is social media in particular? What have they done to make it so addictive? What are the particular aspects of it? The first one, and something we're all familiar with, is the like button. So the like button is very interesting. It's a very interesting aspect of social media. When it was created, and after its creation a few years, Mr. Justin Rosenstein, he was one of the four designers of Facebook's like button. Yes, it took four people to design a like button. He said he did not think it would turn into a cultural phenomenon. He said, and I quote, "The main intention I had was to make positivity the path of least resistance. And I think it succeeded in its goals. But it also created large unintended negative side effects. In a way, it was too successful." Now that phrase, too successful, it doesn't seem like they go together. But sometimes a certain idea can be so successful that it has possible side effects that are negative for certain people. And these negative side effects that he's referring to might include the fact that so many offline activities by Facebook users are now driven by likes. Of course, I'm mentioning Facebook, but this applies to Instagram, Twitter, and any other social media network as well. For example, if you travel somewhere new, of course, not right now, during the quarantine, you shouldn't be going to any place besides the grocery store. But back when we could, when we had the ability to travel, we would do this. And our social media addiction will result in us feeling the need to post about our travels for positive affirmation in the form of likes. It's possible that being able to post about our trip on social media was, in fact, one of the driving force that pushed us to take that that trip in the first place. This is a very interesting switch in the causation of why we do what we do. No longer is it our inner intrinsic drive or our urge to travel or to do something exciting, but the validation we gain from social media that encourage us to do so. There's even a phenomenon coined for this. They call it "do it for the snap, do it for the gram," but we don't do it for ourselves anymore. So much of what we do is fueled by the feeling that, okay, if I do this thing, people are going to like it. I'm going to get likes. I'm going to be popular. So much of what we do is because it seems as though it's a cool thing to do, and no longer is it because we want to do it. But what about this like button? Why are likes so fascinating to us? And that takes us to the next aspect of social media, which is the social media high and our ego. So when we see people reacting or liking what we post about, it validates us and makes us feel good. See, when we see that new notification alert, our brain secretes a neurotransmitter called dopamine, which controls the brain's pleasure centers and the reward center. So the more the dopamine that is released, the more the brain recognizes that it is triggered by reward, and the brain always craves more. This concept is best explained by NYU professor Adam Alter. He's the author of a book called Irresistible, which looks at the rise of addictive technology in the business of keeping us hooked. So he says in his book, and I quote, "When someone likes your Instagram post or any content that you share, it's a little bit like taking a drug. As far as your brain is concerned, it's a very similar experience." Now, the reason why is because it's not guaranteed that you're going to get 100 likes every single time you post. It's the unpredictability of that process that makes it so addictive. If you knew that every time you posted something you'd get 100 likes, it would become boring really fast. And so we understand that the unpredictability of social media, the unpredictability of the positive affirmation that receives, makes it so much more addictive when we do receive it. Essentially, every time we use it, our body releases dopamine, the feel good chemical. And these dopamine hits are so much more addictive because of how it feeds our ego. The reward centers of our brain become a lot more stimulated when we get to express our own views on social media rather than listening to those of others. Having your own space online means you have free reign to post about yourself, right? After all, our profile, our rules, and no one is forcing you to friend them or follow them. Research found that in general, in real life, humans and their interactions are generally 30 to 40% of the conversation is about themselves. But on social media, that number reaches up to 80% and even 95% in some areas. So we understand that dopamine is released when we see the number of likes we get and positive comments, along with the echoes of our personal opinions being blared out. And we continue to do more and more of that for that dopamine hit. And hence, social media can form a sort of addiction. It is pretty crazy. The fact that social media can be used as an analogy to a drug addiction. But this is the effect that it has on us. This is the way that it is designed. And this is the effect that it has. And the drug that is being played is social media. And the effect that it's having is our mind, our self esteem, our value. And this is what ultimately ends up becoming something known as the social currency. So this is a very important aspect. Social currency essentially means attributing value to ourselves based on likes and comments. We post with the intent of receiving constant, instant, and free gratification. But what happens when we don't receive that gratification? How does it make us feel about ourselves when we don't hit our target number of likes? Or if we didn't get enough positive comments? We immediately remove value away from the picture, that post, that memory, and from ourselves. We immediately think of it as something of lesser value only because we didn't get 100 likes. Social currency takes a large toll, especially on people who are creators. People who engage with social media to create content, express themselves, establish their online presence, and present on various platforms and share personal projects that they hold deep value and wanted to be seen. But take, for example, me, a young filmmaker. I'm studying right now in NYU, and I'm studying film and television production. If I were to create my first short film and post it on social media, it might hold something of deep value to me. But if it doesn't receive the positive affirmation that I think it deserves to be received, the number of likes, and by who? It's not being judged by a film professor, film critics, it's being judged by my friends who, as much as I love them and frankly respect them, their opinion shouldn't matter so much, but it will. The number of likes, the number of positive comments, if I don't think it's enough for my creation, for my first short film, I will take away that value from it. Something that I held so deep, so meaningful to myself, I will not think of it as anything important anymore. I will take away the confidence of myself as a creator. I will take that away and I will essentially think of myself as unable or incapable of actually creating good art because social media or because a certain friend circle or a certain number of followers did not like or give me enough positive validation. And this isn't right. At the same time, if we do get the positive affirmation we require, that isn't right either. Because if you think about it, social currency is at its worst when we are being rewarded for staging our lives. Now, what do I mean by staging our lives? I'm talking about the highlight reel. So I don't know how many of you are aware of this term, the highlight reel, but this is a very well-known concept among psychologists and mental health experts who have extensively researched the effects of social media. So before I get into what exactly the highlight reel is, I'll talk to you about a certain experiment that was conducted by two scientists, Dr. Nessie and Dr. Prinstein, on social comparison and how social comparison works on social networking sites and their association with mental health problems. In a study of adolescents conducted in 2015, the two scientists considered the role of technology-based social comparison and feedback seeking in the development of depressive symptoms. Basically, what they did was they saw how many people, adolescents, young kids, compared their lives to other people, and the kind of feedback, positive feedback they were seeking through likes and comments. Right? That's basically what they did. They found that adolescents, 8th and ninth graders, who reported engaging in more social comparison and feedback seeking behavior, like I use social media to see what others think about how I look, or I use social media to interact as an interaction to compare my life with other people's lives, they developed or they experienced more depressive symptoms a year later, even when accounting for earlier levels of depression as well as concurrent technology use. Moreover, this positive association was particularly strong for girls and for students who were less popular with their peers at school. And this lets you know that with the profiles on social networking sites, they often portray positively distorted portrayals of users who engage in social comparison online and may come to feel like everyone is happier than me. And this feeling may be especially pronounced for teens who are already less popular amongst their peers. But besides adolescents and teenagers, the highlight reel affects us at every age. We are constantly comparing our lives to that of others on Facebook feed. This promotes a fake sense of perfection. Think about it. We can't judge someone's online life to our offline life. That's similar to judging ourselves to someone's controlled life. A more elaborate, a more comprehensive example is the fact that we're comparing ourselves, our life, to a character in a book. Because if you think about social media, it is essentially the narrative, the stories we choose to tell, the stories we choose to portray. And we are always portraying the positives. We cannot criticize ourselves to what we perceive other people's lives to be. Parents are constantly thinking, my kids aren't as smart, my kids aren't as good looking, my kids aren't as talented. And they themselves are thinking, and of course the kids are thinking that as well, while they're just thinking how but we don't go on enough trips. They're constantly traveling. Or how wow they're eating such fancy food, or how wow they're eating such healthy food. Though that part might be true. But still, we are constantly comparing ourselves all the time. We look at these perfect people on social media with their perfect lives, but we really fail to understand that we are comparing ourselves to their lives that they choose to show us, a part of their life that they choose to show, which may not necessarily be their reality. We share only our highlights and not our everyday, boring, mundane lives because who wants to look at that, right? And whilst we actually live mundane, routine lives for the most part, we still compare ourselves to what seems to be, but not what we know is true. This constant social comparison, in turn, causes a reduced amount of self esteem, which then may lead us to displaying depressive symptoms. And this is true in a lot of extent, in a very large extent. This highlight reel is directly related to another aspect of social media. And this is a term that I'm not sure the older generation might be aware of, but I'm sure the younger generation knows: FOMO. Quite simply, it means fear of missing out. It applies to all of us. But the best way I can explain to you what FOMO is if I reiterate the story I told you about how I took a gap year, and during my gap year, I was worried about how I would feel knowing all my friends are having an incredible experience. They're having a beautiful, well-deserved experience at college, but I was sitting at home studying for the SAT 10 hours a day, doing nothing else. And so I'm aware that there are better things happening to me, but the crucial thing I was forgetting about is the fact that I was getting to spend quality time with my parents, with my family, time that I didn't get the chance to spend earlier because I was in boarding school and I was in school and I had such a hectic life before that. But for 1 year, I could just study and I could be amongst my parents and my family and could genuinely enjoy their company. But because I could have been on social media and I could have seen everything else was happening, I would have taken my current experience, the current memories I was making for granted, right? People use social media to post about the best things happening in their life, which gives them a self-esteem boost, especially when the people in their networks affirm them. But even when experiencing something great, we often wonder if there is something better and more exciting happening at the same time. And we go on social media and we check, and it confirms to us. It provides us with the proof that there are other great things happening through photos and status updates. When people compare what they're doing to what other people are doing, they may start to feel negative things about what would otherwise perceive as a good time, like the example I just gave you, spending time with my family. So this concept runs parallel to the idea of how we are not doing certain things or activities because we want to, but because it seems like we have to. This is even this concept has been taken so far even nowadays. For example, if you noticed, The Black Lives Movement is happening currently in America, and there are several people protesting. Tons of people are going out there and voicing their opinions. And the sad part about what's happening is there are certain social media influencers, certain people who are popular on these social networking sites who are going to these protests. They're dressing up and they're taking photo shoots there. And they're doing it because they're making it seem as though they're doing something important, as if they care about society, as if they really care about the civil problems that are happening. But in reality, what they're really doing it for is that extra amount of attention and likes and validation that they will get from their followers, letting them know that, yes, I care about society. When in reality, they don't. And this is what's happening to a lot of us when we feel like we should be doing something. Not because we want to, not because we have the heart to, but because it seems or social media is dictating that we should do this. Now, before I get to the positive aspects, which trust me, there are so many, and I will tell you about how to use this as a tool. I firstly just want to talk a little bit about social media and myself. Now, I I have grown up with social media, like I mentioned before, and as I've grown older, social media has improved, and several other new versions of it has come out. And I have taken, and all of these effects that I'm talking to you about, it has affected me as well. I have constantly attributed worth to myself based upon the likes and followers. I used to have 1,200 followers on Instagram, and I thought I was a big deal. I thought I was very important. And I used to get about 350, 400 likes, and I thought I was, wow, like clearly people like me. I'm doing great. At the same time, I always felt worthless. I never felt good. I would neglect potential friendships because I didn't think their social media presence was strong enough. There's so much wrong with all of it did. But the worst aspect, the most adverse effect that social media had on me was to do with my skin condition. Now, for those of you who know me, you'd already be aware of the skin condition I have. But for those of you who don't, I suffer from a skin condition called psoriasis. It is essentially an autoimmune chronic disorder. And what it does is several people, my skin grows at 6 times the rate. Several people in the world experience this, but I experience it in its worst form, where it covers 98% of the body. So what happens is, as my skin is growing at 6 times the rate, I have lesions and dry skin growing all over my body, over and over, shedding out. So yeah, it's not very pretty. It doesn't look so good, and it would result in a lot of spots and all kinds of stuff being left over my body. Right now I am doing very well because of it recovers as you get older, but while I was a young kid it was very difficult. And the worst part about how social media made it difficult for me was when I would go online and when I would see people with perfect skin, with just looking incredibly stunning and getting all that fame and followers. I did not think I could do that. I did not think I was capable of getting positive affirmation or recognition. I didn't think I was deserving of any of that because I didn't look like them. I looked different. I thought in my head, I look like a freak, a creep. And it really did affect me in that sense. It made me feel like a smaller person. Now, of course, I am I am only 5'5", so I am a small person in reality. But it made me feel like a small person, even with my personality. It made me feel like a small, less important human being. And that is where it affected me the most. But I thought I could beat the system. I thought, hey, I'm going to get likes. I'm going to do whatever I can. Like, I will I'm going to get likes. I'm going to become popular. I'm going to feel better about myself by becoming super popular. And so I did. I managed to find out a loophole. And I'm sure all of you know this, but when I was 12 years old, 13 years old, I thought it was great. Filters, editing, the kind of fake identity we show, the fake physical identity we present to everyone on social media, where I could filter out and edit all the spots, all the lesions all over my body. And it worked. No one would notice them, and I would get the likes, I would get the followers, but I still felt worthless. And I didn't know why. For years, I felt worthless. And eventually, I realized that I felt worthless because I was getting a lot of positive affirmation, but it was all that positive affirmation was for a version of myself that was a lie. It was for a version of myself that wasn't real, that wasn't authentically, truly me. I really did feel as though it would work, but it didn't. And this is so often the case for so many people I've spoken to. They're often portraying a lavish and rich lifestyle, success with so many loving relationships, when in reality they are very lonely and they are extremely stressed out. And a lot of this is just because they feel like they're not good enough, and because they're portraying a version of themselves on social media that they cannot live up to. That is the kind of pressure it puts on us. So I just want to take you back to what I had said earlier, but how I looked at those famous people and how I thought I could never get that famous because I don't have what they have, the perfect height, the perfect skin. But I want to tell you guys that you don't have to. You don't have to get famous. You don't need hundreds of followers, thousands of followers. You don't need hundreds of likes. You don't need tons of positive comments and affirmation from a lot of people that you frankly don't really know that well in order for yourself to feel better. You don't need any of that to feel good about yourself. It's not a necessary thing. You have to do this, and you can do it with the people you genuinely speak to in real life, with the people who genuinely know you in real life and you share moments with, and they know who you truly are, and they can give you that positive affirmation, and that is enough. But so much of it needs to come from within yourself. So use social media, find people, make new friends, but just don't ever let it dictate to you how you should feel about yourself. And that is a vital and important point that I want all of you to remember. Now, I have come to the part that all of you have been waiting for, I'm sure. Social media is a tool. This is something that we need to understand, is that social media is not a demon. It is only a demon if we let it be. Just like so many things are addictions and vices only if we let them be. Social media can add value to our lives. Now that we're aware of all the effects it has on our mental health, we can now acknowledge them and make a conscious effort to use social media in a manner by which it is healthy for our minds. We know that social media is addictive in its design, and so we should use it to the extent that it doesn't become addictive. If this does seem like an issue for you, if you're genuinely struggling with using social media and you find it to be a real addiction, then try to cut back on its use. For every 30 minutes of social media, spend half an hour reading. Where has that gone? Right? Like, the famous quote, readers make leaders. And then there's another famous quote, the average human being reads about one book a day. Facebook. I I apologize for that dad joke, but yes, the point is do something that genuinely stimulates your mind for every 30 minutes you use. I noticed that there are some questions, and I will answer them the moment the session is done. Just a few more minutes. So we keep in mind that we cannot assert value to ourselves based upon the number of likes and comments we get as well. External and instant gratification will do nothing for ourselves. And we have to remember that confidence, value, self-esteem, none of this is built externally. None of this is built upon how others perceive us. All of this is built from within, upon your own perception of who you are. We have to learn that social media, you have to remember that it is not a reality. It is far from it. Realize that it is something we use extensively to feed our own ego. And that is what all of us are doing. And keeping that thought in mind will make you understand that not everyone is as perfect as they portray themselves. And it's okay. That is completely okay. Something that I really wanted to share about social media is the ability is the need for having mindfulness at a time like this. We have to be mindful in the present moment, just simply being. We're in a constant state of doing rather than a constant state of being. Information and incidents are being thrown at us and interpreted by our psyches that is damaging our own mental health. So much of it is unnecessary. Let me just explain that a bit further. In January, I went for a spiritual retreat. And in that spiritual retreat, for 5 days, I was disconnected from reality completely. No phones, no speaking, no mirrors, nothing. Absolutely nothing except 9 to 10 hour sessions every day from a guru and meditation. That's it. It was a very enlightening experience. And don't worry, I'm not going to give you another half an hour talk on spirituality. But what I can sum up in one sentence about what I learned about meditation is that meditation is essentially the ability to focus intensively on one activity. That's how the whole saying of this certain thing, say when you listen to a great song and you really pay close attention to it, it gives you a meditative feeling, a meditative experience. And that's what it is. Meditation can be reading a book. It can be listening closely to the lyrics of the song. It can be watching intensely a scene of a film. Meditation is just deep focus. And it is so useful to keep our mind in the present moment, to keep us grasped, to keep us calm, to give us peace, and to keep us content. Yet, if you look at social media just from a third person view, just look at it. And you'll realize that social media is the absolute opposite of what meditation is. It is something where constant information is being thrown at us and it doesn't allow us to focus. There are even studies that show social media causes fragmented attention and it reduces our ability to deep focus and our attention span. But more importantly, it loses our ability to have meditative experiences. And that is something that is absolutely vital in being content. I'm not asking you to literally go and sit in one corner or go to Bodh Gaya or some spiritual trip and meditate. All I'm asking you is to put your phone aside for once and actually listen to that song or read that book or watch that movie. And don't be distracted. Watch it with complete intent. Focusing on our breath is something that could help as well. Something as simple as that holds so many secrets and resolutions. Thinking, analyzing all the time on social media while looking at screens all day does nothing enough but gives us stress. And so this is something that we should keep in mind. Another thing that social media can be very useful is a tool. We can use it as a tool to self brand. It gives us great tools to help us develop a brand in terms of how we consistently present ourselves and conduct ourselves online. But the important part about this is that our online personality should resemble values and a true character. Be authentic, show an authentic side to yourself. And that is how you will feel good about who you present. And when you get that positive affirmation, you'll know it is because you're presenting an authentic version of you. It can also be used as a tool to cultivate relationships with people whom you really know. I parallel this with the fact that we should be selective with who we keep in our social media circle. We should, because not frankly, not everyone has the best interest in mind. But a rule of thumb that I keep is that know at least 90% of your friends or followers. The rest 10% may be people you'll connect with for the business events or wherever you may meet them. But know at least 90% of them. Don't be like me, 1,200 followers and I only know 100 of them. What is the point? What is the point of sharing my life with 1,100 other people who I know nothing about? And I don't really care about what they think of me. And I shouldn't. But I did. And I'll be frankly honest. If you do not have a positive purpose for using social media, it may not be the most useful for you. It's about the likes. No, it's not about the likes. It's not about the followers. It's about your engagement. Be honest about what your real intentions are. What is your intent? Is it to motivate? Is it to spotlight? Bring awareness to certain things that you feel unnecessary that can help the world? Or is it simply to feed your own ego? You have to be honest with yourself and how you use it. And the final thing, the final quote I want to leave all of you with, this is something that if you remember and you live by it while using social media, you'll be able to use it in an effective manner, is to learn to love yourself. Learn to like yourself. Like that like button, learn to like yourself. Because if you live by people's compliments, you will die by the criticism. And that is true. Thank you. And if anyone has any questions right now, I'll be answering them. So you can put them in the chat box. I see there is one question right now, whether if I use social media and if yes, for how long. I do use social media right now. I've got back onto it because I realized it's a great way to network with people from college since I'll be joining this year. And I've gotten to meet a lot of new people, talk to them, understand a lot of things about how college works and what I should do in order to be prepared. And I use it as a very functional form. Otherwise, I use it, say, about half an hour to 40 minutes a day, simply for communicating with people. Besides that, nothing else much. If you have any other questions, you can put them in the comments and I'll wait for like another 10-15 seconds if there are questions. If not, you can tune off. And thank you so much for watching this talk, for giving me this time of your life. And I really hope you could find it useful. I really want you to remember, so I am not demonizing social media, but I'm just letting you know the kind of demon it can be and how you can control that in your life and how you can use it to an extent where it feels effective and it's a tool for you rather than something that controls you. So, right. Thank you.